Hi everyone, welcome to this session. We will begin the discussion regarding the budget plans for your project's proposal. Following the course's syllabus, we started by having a general overview of terminology that resulted in the construction of the work packages plan. In this next step, we will outline the contents of a budget. We are going to achieve that by exploring your project's activities and the resources they need to finally develop your project's budget. Budgets constitute the foundation of any proposal, and it outlines the project in fiscal terms and shows to the reviewers how the project will be conducted from a financial point of view. Budget information about activities planned and personnel provides reviewers with an in-depth picture of how the project will be structured and managed. It provides information about the proposal's overall quality, in which the reviewers can realize the strengths and potential flaws. Details of a proposal budget usually reveal whether a proposal project has been carefully planned and may ultimately be feasible. The proposal budget must give an accurate assessment of all cost items and cost amounts that are deemed necessary and reasonable. The presented budget must correlate with the expected efforts and tasks detailed in the work packages and reflect the quality of the overall work plan. In the following presentation, we intend to demonstrate a brief but efficient guide on how to calculate your project's budget, along with some tips. Before starting the calculation of your project's budget, it is crucial to understand the categories of eligible costs. When applying to proposals, including a non-eligible cost may harm the application and the chances of having the project funded. Although eligible costs slightly vary between programs, the two main categories are eligible direct costs and eligible indirect costs. Direct costs need to satisfy the eligibility criteria of each funding program. In general, we can divide them in four types: personnel or staff costs, subcontracting costs, purchase costs, and other costs. And in the case of indirect costs, they consist of a fixed percentage of direct costs. In the following slides, we will have an overview of each cost. Starting with personnel costs, they consist of the main segment of most projects. Usually details regarding salaries, additional payments, pension, and other social benefits should be considered. Nevertheless, for the scope of this proposal, the main focus is the average monthly cost of employment of relevant staff that is expected to participate in the project. To calculate personnel costs, two parameters are considered: the total number of persons month and salary per person per month. The total number of persons months refers to employees working efforts per month. For example, the number of employees working full-time for 1 month or 2 employees working half-time. Although this definition may seem redundant, it refers to the number of persons months that will be needed for each work package of the proposal, defined by the workload of each task from its duration. The salary per person per month refers to gross salaries of the employees, including additional charges. Commonly, the following parameters are considered: dedication in percentage, duration of assigned tasks, and employee category, among others. In collaborative proposals, it is important to note that salaries depend on location, displaying a common high range of staff costs. Personnel costs only apply to official employees of the applicant, partners, or entities. Payment to other individuals, such as external consultants or advisors, apply to subcontracting costs. The following table is a typical description of the personnel costs. In it, we can find a description of every person taking part of the project regarding their position, role, and their salary. The table contemplates a yearly increase of salary, which can be seen in the yearly gross amounts. Subtotals can be seen for every position and sums for each year. Subcontracting costs are related to third entities not legally bound with the proposal. In that capacity, the subcontractor's inputs are under the responsibility of those contracting and ultimately of the proposal's applicant. It is crucial then to correctly define the responsibilities and deliverables, as they may not cover core tasks of the project. Once more, this reflects the ultimate responsibility of the applicants as the main actors in the project. particularly for single partner projects. To lower the dependency of the project's success to external entities, it is advisable that the total subcontracting costs do not have a share higher than 15 to 20% of the overall proposal's budget. The following table gives the evaluator an overview of the subcontracting costs. They have to be described, and similarly to personnel costs, the salary per person per month is indicated according to the effort needed. Purchase costs include travel costs and equipment costs. Travel costs refer to trips for dissemination purposes. This means participation or exhibition in conferences, workshops, and research stays. Therefore, the costs depend on the nature of the project. Equipment costs contemplate the acquisition of machinery and other materials only for the duration of the project. Therefore, it is highly recommended to include the calculation of amortization. In this template, there is a distinction of travel costs related to workshop, conferences, and meetings in the case of multi-partner projects. Travel costs related to research consider individual costs according to the number of travelers and their honoraries, including other costs related to transport. As previously mentioned, equipment costs need to be described. To do so, we can consider the costs per item, the amortization time, usage for the project, and the use time of the project. The result is the real cost of each piece of equipment in the project in the time frame of application. In this case, an example is given for 3 years. Other goods, works, and services costs include costs related to the project required for direct execution. For example, this can be split into subcategories, including materials for promotion of the project, certificates such as patents and audits, computing costs such as software access and consumables, among others. In the following table, we can describe our costs considering units and their unitary cost for the total duration of the project. Other costs include costs of internally invoiced goods and services. Some examples are maintenance of equipment and the payment for staff working at the facility. For the latter, we don't have to confuse them with the cost for subcontracting. Keep in mind that most of these other cost categories cannot benefit from the addition of the 25% flat rate of indirect costs. Going back to our main slide, the second category for eligible costs is indirect costs. As previously indicated, they consist of a fixed share of the direct costs. It can vary depending on the program, but it can reach up to 25% of the mentioned direct costs. Many entities use them to cover expenses that cannot be easily justified. For example, the success fee of consulting companies. To summarize, direct costs consist of personnel, subcontracting, travel, equipment, and other goods and services. In the case of indirect costs, subcontracting costs are not eligible. In the case of other costs, more are not eligible either. Therefore, in general, the flat rate consists of the personnel, travel, equipment, and other goods services costs. Finally, the description of the total costs are seen as a yearly subtotal, considering all direct costs, followed by the indirect costs and the yearly total, as well as the overall cost for the duration of the financing. Now, each group should develop the budget for their proposals. For it, you should consider potential costs for your project. Then, you should categorize them according to the classification seen in this presentation. Finally, after inserting each input, you will be able to calculate your project's budget. The next step of your project design will be the schedule and timeline. Thank you for your attention.